What's up everyone and welcome back to the World History Channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. The mysterious hypotheses about the gone Roanoke colony. The disappearance of the Roanoke colony long remained one of the oldest unsolved mysteries in the United States. In 1587, Sir Walter Raleigh provided financial support to John White's efforts to establish a British colony on Roanoke Island, which is located just off the coast of North Carolina. They arrived in July and quickly established themselves. The 115-strong colony looked like everything was going well. In fact, John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, gave birth to a daughter while in Roanoke. The first English child to be born in the Americas was Virginia Dare. White sailed back to England to gather fresh supplies, but the Anglo-Spanish War delayed his return. After being away from his family for 3 years, White finally returned to Roanoke in 1590, but he arrived to find the entire colony had simply vanished. They left nothing behind except the word CROATOAN carved into a post and crow etched into a tree. But what does CROATOAN mean and where could the colony have gone? In 2020, amateur archaeologist Scott Dawson, a native of Hatteras Island, just south of Roanoke, released a book, The Lost Colony in Hatteras Island, in which he provides evidence from researchers that the colonists were never lost and the mystery is over, as he told the Virginian pilot. The colonists, Dawson said, moved to Hatteras Island and assimilated into the Native American tribe, the CROATOANs, who already lived there. Scientists who studied the area, he said, uncovered a mix of English and Native American artifacts, proving that the two communities lived together. Even if the mystery is truly solved, it is still fascinating to consider the various theories that have been proposed over the years. Local native tribes absorbed the colonists as friends or slaves. An island named CROATOAN, now Hatteras Island, just south of Roanoke, is home to a Native American tribe of the same name. Many people believe that the settlers moved to the island and were absorbed into the tribe because they had a good relationship with the tribe and carved CROATOAN on the gatepost of the fort. As Scott Dawson's 2020 book The Lost Colony and Hatteras Island shows, this theory appears solid and solves the mystery. Previous researchers also considered other possible connections to Native Americans. They may have moved north to join the Chesapeake, Roanoke, or Wepameoc tribes, according to some theories. In the years after the colony disappeared, many people reported seeing Europeans and European-made goods in the area, though it was mostly hearsay. The Zuniga map, a chart of the area drawn around 1607 by a settler from the Virginia colony of Jamestown, states 4 men clothed that came from Roanoke lived among the Iroquois. At the Indian settlements of Peccareconick and Okanahoan, another Englishman claimed to have observed 2-story stone houses. British settlers supposedly taught them how to build such houses. Contemporary archaeologists unearthed evidence including a gold signet ring, part of a rapier, and a slate and pencil that likely belonged to the Roanoke colonists while living among native people. It's also possible the colonists met with native people who were less friendly. Jamestown colonist Secretary William Strachey reported seeing native tribes with European slaves who were forced to beat copper. To this day, many native people in the region claim to have European ancestry, but DNA analysis of present-day local families proved inconclusive. The colonists fell victim to cannibalism or practiced it themselves. Unlike the CROATOANs, other Native American tribes may have been more hostile to the Roanoke colonists. There's a theory that a cannibalistic tribe could have attacked and eaten the British colonists. That would explain why no bodies were ever found if it were true. Many native cultures used bones as ingredients for healing remedies, grinding them into a powder form. They would have had time even though it takes a lot of time. White was absent for 3 years, and it is impossible to determine precisely when the settlers began to vanish. There isn't convincing evidence that any tribes in the area practiced cannibalism, but there is proof that the colonists of Jamestown resorted to cannibalism in 1609. It's quite possible their predecessors in Roanoke succumbed to eating human flesh as well. CROATOAN and Edgar Allan Poe shared a mysterious connection. In addition to the location of the Roanoke colony, archaeologists and historians are still attempting to determine why the word CROATOAN was carved into that post. Were the colonists saying the CROATOAN tribe would know what happened to them? While we still don't know, the word CROATOAN is connected to another strange event centuries later. Not much is known about the death of author Edgar Allan Poe in 1849. After disappearing on a trip from Virginia to Pennsylvania, he turned up nearly unconscious and babbling incoherently in a gutter in Baltimore, Maryland. While on his deathbed, Poe allegedly whispered the word "CROATOAN." His official cause of death is unknown, and the nature of his illness is unknown. All medical records and his death certificate were allegedly lost. Could he have experienced what the lost colony did? CROATOAN shows up at the location of numerous other enigmatic disappearances. This mysterious word also reportedly showed up in other places. Infamous stagecoach robber Black Bart supposedly etched the word into the wall of his prison cell right before his release in 1888, and he was never seen again. Horror author Ambrose Bierce vanished while in Mexico in 1913, and the bed he last slept in allegedly had the word "CROATOAN" carved into a post. The word also appears on the last page of the logbook of the ghost ship Carroll A. Deering in 1921, which ran aground without its crew on Cape Hatteras, near what was once known as CROATOAN Island. And Amelia Earhart reportedly scribbled the word in her journal, found after her disappearance in 1937. The colonists were massacred by Chief Powhatan. In 1607, people from the Jamestown colony tried to find out what happened to their hapless forebears. Jamestown Secretary William Strachey claimed the native chief Powhatan confessed to leader John Smith that his tribe murdered the colony as payback for aligning themselves with a rival tribe. Powhatan allegedly possessed some items he'd taken from the colonists, including a musket barrel and a brass mortar and pestle. However, historians and anthropologists largely dispute this story, as the only record of this confession comes from Strachey. Smith never mentioned it in his own writings. An infectious disease drove the colonists mad. Because of reports from Native American tribes claiming to witness internal warfare among the Roanoke colonists, archaeologists also theorize the Roanoke settlers contracted a plague. The illness could have caused delirium, paranoia, or even complete madness among the infected. Because they were afraid of getting the virus, those who weren't infected would have wanted to defeat those who were. Spanish troops murdered the colonists. England was at war with Spain when the Roanoke colony disappeared, and some think the Spanish were involved in the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists. Spain and England were locked in a rivalry over the colonization of the Americas, among other things, and there were Spanish troops stationed in Florida at the time. Did Spanish troops make their way to North Carolina and eradicate the British foothold in the area? The colonists were sabotaged as part of a plan to discredit Sir Walter Raleigh. Anthropologist Lee Miller believes the colonists were victims of a plot by Sir Francis Walsingham, England's Secretary of State under Queen Elizabeth I. In Miller's book Roanoke, Solving the Mystery of the Lost Colony, she theorizes that Walsingham intentionally stranded the colonists and left them to die because Sir Walter Raleigh, who funded the expedition to Roanoke, was granted a royal patent for all the land he settled in America. According to the theory, the colonists moved west into what's now North Carolina, where they became embroiled in a conflict between warring native tribes. They were either captured or murdered. All of this would have been kept secret by the Crown, which would explain why no records exist. The colonists tried to sail back to England. Some theorize the colonists simply grew tired of waiting for John White to return and attempted to sail back to England on their own. However, that might not be possible. Historians believe the colonists were left with only a small boat known as a pinnace, and it wouldn't have been large enough to carry them all. There's also no evidence of a shipwreck to support this theory. The CROATOAN tribe executed the colonists as suspected witches. The CROATOAN tribe reportedly believed in witches, both male and female, who used black magic to do evil. The actions of the Roanoke colonists, like spreading disease and encroaching on native land, could have been interpreted as evil by the tribe. While local tribes in that area did not regularly execute witches, they did condemn dangerous outsiders to death, and the colonists may have seemed dangerous. Roanoke was the site of a zombie apocalypse. Another theory some folks like to share on the internet claims Roanoke served as ground zero for some kind of zombie apocalypse. This theory brings together elements of other theories that the colonists were ill and turned into cannibals. According to this idea, The settlers became infected with a zombie virus that gave them an insatiable hunger for human flesh and hastened the decaying process of their own bodies. The remains would have been long gone, and the infestation would have been over before White returned. The Roanoke colonists were transformed into trees. The CROATOAN tribe reportedly believed the island had a spirit who, if angered, had the ability to absorb the offenders into the woods, literally. The spirit could transform them into trees, stones, animals, or anything else in nature. If this lore is taken at face value, that means no one actually went missing. They just became a part of the land. The reptilian devil of the woods possessed the colonists. The CROATOANs believed that greater spirits manifested themselves in the form of elements, and they reported a strange phenomenon that occurred at the same time as the vanishing of the colonists. Birds fell from the sky and large numbers of wildlife died abruptly in the area where the native people hunted. The CROATOANs told of an evil spirit that took the form of a reptile. They said it was able to attach itself to humans, causing them to demonstrate the demonic traits like violence, rapaciousness, and greed. The CROATOANs warned the colonists that the evil reptilian spirit had infested the entire region, and once the infighting began, they knew the settlers were infected with the creature's evil, and that's why they turned on each other. The colonists were the victims of North Carolina witches. If the CROATOANs didn't think that the colonists were witches, maybe the colonists encountered witches already waiting for them. Many legends tell of witches who stalked the woods of North Carolina, and new arrivals only added to the lore. Native Americans in North Carolina were said to have told stories about witches who used black magic to harm other people, and early European colonists said that the Native Americans were themselves witches. It's well known that later colonists accused each other of witchcraft, notoriously in the Salem witch trials. The Dare stones tell the tale of the colonists who went missing. From 1937 to 1941, people started finding engraved stones that were said to have been written by people from the Roanoke colony. A man claimed to have found the first stone, a 21-pound rock, somewhere along the Carolina coast. It's believed that Eleanor Dare used it to write a message to her father, John White. In the alleged account, Dare says the colonists moved farther away from the ocean a short time after White embarked for England, but they were plagued with illness and violent encounters with native tribes until only 7 colonists remained. More than 40 additional engraved stones were discovered by a farmer in North Carolina during the 1930s. However, their authenticity has been established. The first stone is different, however, and it could be the real deal. Aliens abducted the colonists. You know, a mystery is extremely mysterious when an alien abduction seems like a logical explanation. Theories about extraterrestrial involvement range from reality shift that banished the colonists into another realm, to aliens beaming them up for a bit and then beaming them back down on the other side of the earth. They literally vanished. They might appear in Roanoke hundreds of years from now and believe they've only been gone for an hour, who knows? Virginia Dare escaped the attack and was transformed into a stunning white doe. Many legends about the Roanoke Colony center on little Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas and the granddaughter of the colony's founder, John White. When White finally returned to his colony, it was on Virginia's 3rd birthday. In 1901, Sally Southall Cotton wrote the poem The White Doe, The Fate of Virginia Dare, a fictional account of what happened to the little girl. In the poem, a local tribe adopts Virginia and gives her the name Winonaska. She's loved and accepted by the tribe, and when she grows up, she gets engaged to a young chieftain. Sadly, she also attracts the attention of a wicked witch doctor who, in retaliation for her refusal to marry him, transforms her into a white doe. While this story is presented as fiction, many people claim to have seen a ghostly white doe in the area. One of the most enduring mysteries in American history is the mystery of the Roanoke colony, also known as the Lost Colony. It is a tale of ambition, survival, cultural clash, and sudden disappearance that has sparked centuries of speculation and fascination. It all began in 1587, when Sir Walter Raleigh sponsored the expedition of Englishman John White to establish a permanent colony in the New World. This new settlement took root on Roanoke Island, just off the coast of what is now North Carolina. There were 115 families, artisans, and adventurers among the colonists who were eager to stake their claim on a strange but promising land. The birth of Virginia Dare, White's granddaughter and the first English child to be born in the United States, marked hopeful beginnings. Yet when White returned to England to gather desperately needed supplies, he found himself stranded for 3 years due to the outbreak of war with Spain. In 1590, when he finally got back to Roanoke, all he found was eerie silence, overgrown ruins, and a cryptic clue: the letters CRO etched into a tree and the word CROATOAN carved into a post. There were no bodies, no signs of battle, no wreckage. The colony had vanished as if spirited away. Since that day, the fate of the Roanoke settlers has remained a puzzle with dozens of fascinating, chilling, and sometimes absurd theories. Each theory is a window into both the time it emerged and the imagination of those who refuse to rest on the mystery. The hypothesis that the colonists were not lost at all but rather assimilated into the CROATOAN tribe, which is native to nearby Hatteras Island, is one of the most widely supported theories, particularly in recent years. The Lost Colony in Hatteras Island, a book about years of research and excavation on Hatteras Island, was published in 2020 by amateur archaeologist Scott Dawson. He presents evidence of Native American and English artifacts found side by side, suggesting a peaceful integration. Pipes, weapons, and European-style tools unearthed on the island speak to a hybrid community where colonists and natives may have coexisted. This aligns with accounts suggesting the settlers had a friendly relationship with the CROATOANs and may have gone to live with them willingly, leaving behind the word CROATOAN as a literal map. However, other theories propose that the colonists may have moved northward to join other tribes like the Chesapeake, Roanoke, or Wepameoc. The 1607 Zuniga map claims for Roanoke men lived among Iroquois-speaking tribes. English explorers later reported glimpsing 2-story stone houses in native villages, possibly taught by the colonists, and archaeological digs unearthed gold rings and rapier hilts typical of English settlers. Some speculate less friendly tribes may have enslaved or even killed the colonists. William Strachey, secretary of the Jamestown colony, claimed he witnessed native groups with English captives forced to pound copper. DNA testing of local native populations has shown hints of European lineage, though not conclusively tied to Roanoke. More ominously, there are those who believe the colonists didn't vanish but were devoured, either by cannibalistic tribes or by each other. While no direct evidence supports the existence of cannibalistic practices among the local native tribes, scholars have pointed to the Jamestown colony's 1609 starving time, when settlers resorted to cannibalism to survive. Could the settlers of Roanoke have ended up preying on one another because they were going through the same famine, illness, or madness? The dark legend attributes the mystery to the spooky author Edgar Allan Poe, who is said to have said the word CROATOAN on his deathbed shortly before passing away in 1849 under enigmatic circumstances. Though possibly apocryphal, this eerie coincidence is compounded by the word's bizarre appearance in other unsolved vanishings. Inscribed in the prison cell of outlaw Black Bart in 1888, scrawled on the bedpost of vanished author Ambrose Bierce in 1913, marked on the last page of the ghost ship Carol A. Deering's logbook in 1921, and even found in the supposed recovered journal of Amelia Earhart. It's as though the word CROATOAN is a trail of mysterious disappearances across space and time. Other grim possibilities involve murder. One theory asserts that the Roanoke colonists were executed for allying with hostile tribes. Chief Powhatan was the father of Pocahontas and the ruler of a powerful native alliance. Strachey claimed Powhatan himself confessed this to Captain John Smith, even presenting English artifacts allegedly taken from the dead. But historians dispute this, noting that Smith himself never mentioned the confession and the evidence relies solely on hearsay. Disease, too, might have played a role. Some archaeologists and historians theorize that the colonists succumbed to an illness that triggered madness and paranoia. Internal strife or fear of contagion may have caused settlers to turn on each other in a chaotic collapse. Some may have remained behind, while others may have fled or been exiled. One bizarre yet oddly plausible theory posits that Spanish troops, hostile to English efforts in the Americas and based in Florida at the time, journeyed north to wipe out the Roanoke colony as a strategic maneuver during the Anglo-Spanish War. But there is no Spanish documentation confirming such an attack. Additionally, The notion that Roanoke's demise was politically motivated has gained traction. Anthropologist Lee Miller, in her book Roanoke, Solving the Mystery of the Lost Colony, proposes that Secretary of State Sir Francis Walsingham conspired against Sir Walter Raleigh, whose influence at court he resented. By manipulating the mission's route and timing, Walsingham may have doomed the colony to fail. Trapped between warring tribes and abandoned by the crown, the settlers were easy prey for misfortune, their story quickly buried for political convenience. Some believe the colonists attempted to save themselves. It's suggested they tried to sail back to England. But their only boat, a small pinnace, would have been inadequate for 115 people. No wreckage or reports support the idea. Others think the colonists turned south to Spanish territories, were captured, and perished in enslavement or imprisonment. More mystical explanations abound. The CROATOAN tribe believed in spirits capable of absorbing people into nature itself. If the settlers offended such a force, they may have been transformed into trees, rocks, or animals. According to this lore, they never left. They simply became part of the land. CROATOAN oral traditions also speak of a reptilian evil spirit that could possess humans and bring destruction. The tribe believed this malevolent force caused animals to die en masse and people to turn against each other. When the colonists began fighting among themselves, the CROATOANs saw it as evidence of spiritual corruption. Some say this demonic presence consumed the settlers from within. Other eerie legends say the colonists met witches already in the North Carolina wilderness. Native people spoke of malevolent beings who cursed intruders, and some colonial superstitions transformed these native stories into fears of wilderness sorcery. Could it be that the settlers were cursed, either by magic, disease, or madness? The story of Virginia Dare.